coffee and I don't want to drink any more wine. Starting eating it, it's like getting super raspy. And it reeks. Okay.
Welcome to the 25th meeting of the Honolulu Liquor Commission. Calling agenda item number 1, application number 23-04031, LB Waikiki LLC.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Keith Kiuchi for the applicant, LB Waikiki LLC, also the authorized agent. To explain, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This application has received 0 written protests, 0 letters in support. Applicant has met statutory requirements for the submission of this application. And for the record, a summary of the November 30th preliminary hearing testimony was provided to Chair Hong and Co-Vice Chair Martin prior to the public hearing.
So to explain the application, the operator is Hideyuki Sakurai. As you can see from the investigative report, Mr. Sakurai has considerable experience with operating restaurants in Waikiki. This is a different concept for him. He's operating a fine dining Italian restaurant, brought in a chef from Japan. He has taken over the old lobby bar area in the Lohilani Resort. There are some challenges next week. We've got the deletion of the area that was part of the hotel. But he's been operating under a special license for some time, and before that, a services agreement. He has not had any problems, and the concept has been well received.
Commissioners, questions?
So Shikuchi, that's the area that's like by the fish tank, the older fish tank.
Right, so if you
Yeah.
look at the floor plan, the oval area is the fish tank. It actually comes in from the lobby, so it's across from like the reception area.
I missed one section. Is there anyone who in the audience who'd like to testify either for or against this application? Okay. Any other questions?
The only other thing I was gonna point out is there is looking through the history of violations, right, for Sky Waikiki and Uho Cantina. I mean, they had some recent violations. Let's just try to work our best we can to
Yeah.
keep those things. I mean, it's all tied because of him,
Right.
his ownership, but you
Right.
know, they were in. We got like 2021, 22, 23, and the same on the other side, right? 22, 23. The rest were super old, but let's work on keeping just an eye on those things.
Yeah, we will. If you, I remember the Sky Waikiki violation because I got him, I transferred the license to him. And that was the rogue manager that disappeared once the liquor commission investigators showed up. So, yeah, so I think picking personnel is kind of important. So.
Yeah. I have no other questions. Motion to approve application number 23-04031.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve application number 23-04031. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Calling agenda item number 2, application number 24-01285 by Pools Inn Catering by Sinublan Inc.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sheila O'Connell, event coordinator and authorized agent for Cruise and Catering by Sinublan.
See. And welcome. We haven't seen you guys in a while.
I know a lot of company parties, they don't want to drink.
Okay, well, all right. Any questions?
So quick first thing, can you just walk us through your event? For some of the newer people that are on the commission,
yeah.
because they kind of haven't been to see all of them with you guys,
Yes,
if you could.
So this event is gonna be a first birthday party on January 27th with a bar inside and with 1 HPD on site as well.
So Ms. O'Connell, quick question, you're also licensing the courtyard area too, correct?
Correct.
My comment that I'll make here, I won't make for all of them, but it'll be the same comment I normally do make. If you can please, I know we're out of graduation season, but it's a first birthday party, you're gonna have children there. Can you just make sure someone is kind of keeping an eye out in that courtyard area so we don't have any passing of alcohol to the wrong or underage individuals?
Especially not to the birthday.
Yes. And then the baby bottles.
I have no other questions. Motion to approve application number 24-01285.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve application number 24-01285. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved. Agenda item number 3, application number 24-01286, Cools and Catering by Sinublan Inc.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sheila Kano, Event Coordinator and Authorized Agent for Cruise and Catering by Sinublan. Here we also have another first birthday party with the bar inside as well, with 2 HPDs on site.
I have no questions.
I guess the 2-year-olds need 2 HPD.
That's what I was thinking. Double the trouble.
Motion to approve application number 24-01286.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve application number 24-01286. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved. Calling agenda item number 4, application number 24-01287. Cools and Catering by Sinublan Inc.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sheila Kano, Event Coordinator and Authorized Agent for Cruise and Catering by Sinublan. Here we have a wedding for approximately about 100 people, but we still have an HPD on site. Bar will be inside as well.
Oh, I get 3 HPD. for this.
This one you can give the wedding parties if
Yeah.
they want versus
Yeah.
the first birthday
Yeah.
party.
Correct. The honoree.
Motion to approve application number 24-01287.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve application number 24-01287. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, thank you. Calling agenda item number 5, application number 24-01244, Sodexo America LLC.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Justin Solusad, SOLUSOD, period, authorized agent for Sodexo America. I have updated attendance, ticket counts for, it's a J-book, the 3:30. Right now it's at 1,418. Projected to get about to that 4,500 mark.
Wow.
Yeah, it'll get there.
Mr. Shula said, just a quick refresher update. So the number 4,500, we looking at that, guys that are plainclothes, or is that the?
Oh, no, the
number?
4,500 is it's a potential ticket count.
No,
to
no,
the
if
gates.
we get to that
Oh,
number,
yeah, yeah.
right? Is that the number?
Oh, the
we-
plain clothes, yeah,
Is that the number we
yeah, we
were
bring it like-
talking about?
So
the
yeah,
plainclothes
once we hit that
guys?
4,500 level, we bring in a couple plain clothes. It goes to 6, we bring it up to like six of
Okay.
them, yeah.
Couldn't remember what the number was.
Yeah,
It was around there.
Yeah, I think it's between 35 and 45, we start doing it. It's a good practice. It's been working.
I have no other questions.
Have
Motion.
you guys, have we done one of these before at the show?
I think so. Yeah, we
I
did.
have experience with pride. but not
First
on
time,
this
first
side
time
of
I've
it.
seen her.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen you and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
I
I
was-
guess
Yeah, I did,
we'll-
but
I
you
guess
don't
we'll- I
point
guess
us
we'll- I guess what we'll do
I know
it
you guys. You
because we have some of
Yeah.
our newer
want to
commissioners.
run it down?
If you can run through
Okay.
some of
Yeah.
your guys' measures and what
Oh,
you do.
wait. You already, you moved it. Maybe
I
we'll
did
second,
it.
well.
There's another one. I get on a second
We
one.
have a set, we have.
Yeah, we have another one. So I
Okay.
guess I can make a motion to approve
Yeah.
application number 24-01244.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve application number 24-01244. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved. Calling agenda item number 6, application number 24-01245, Sodexo America LLC.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Justin Solusad, General Manager, Authorized Agent for Sodexo America. Updated information for that one. Right now, ticket sales are at 885 only. Again, we kind of project that to get to that 4,500 number, which we will implement that plainclothes, roamers to just spot. So the operation at the Shell, we run, if we're getting to that 4,500 number, we run about 5 points of sale. Each point of sale has one ID checker, one security officer. We have at the 4,500 mark, 2 plainclothes roamers around to check for underage, just to spot check. We wristband everybody at point of sale, and the bartenders are also responsible. Security personnel is normally about our liquor compliance side. We do about 15 to 25 depending in type of show kind of thing. This one will go higher end, so probably 20-ish. And then event security, there's about 30 of them. And then 12 HPD normally on site. That's the typical, reggae concert at the show.
And this one has,
This is Iration, I believe.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
water stations or
No,
what are the?
the
little-
water stations were that's a city, the DES, they implement with the promoter that.
Ah,
We sell water at all of our locations, and food and beverage, the non-alcohol doesn't close until bars are closed. Those stay open.
Okay.
Yeah. The daytime ones for sure we do water stations, but the evening ones not so much.
Any other questions? Okay, motion to approve application number 24.01245.
I second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve application number 24-01245. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved. Calling agenda item number 7, application number 24-01310, Sodexo America LLC.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Justin Solusa, General Manager, Authorized Agent for Sodexo America. This is a little different one. This is a corporate company event, SAP. Right now, they're expecting 4,775 attendees, 4,775 attendees. This one, we're only doing beers and wines, no hard liquor. It's more of a high-end catered event. ID, the difference with this one is IDs will be checked previous to entry. There will be people under 21, but it's going to be like 95 to 5% kind of ratio. It's more of a corporate event, and we'll also provide all that security and roamers and stuff to make sure. But
The corporate guys.
yeah.
At least these guys are drinking.
No, yeah, don't, they get one big money.
So a quick question on the
Yes, sir.
floor plan. I see a lot of the markers for the security, but are you just doing the,
Roamer.
the,
Like they're gonna be roaming and just watching.
no. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's no actual red listed spaces. So the bar portion, is that just gonna be in the concession stand areas?
Yeah, so it's TBD right now because they have a planner.
Okay,
So I'm gonna suggest, these areas that we normally do, but it's gonna be within that red, and I'm gonna suggest the normal spots,
okay.
the top, but I can update you guys if needed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing would be, if the week before your event, if you could just send in an updated floor plan
Can do.
where those red bar areas might be, just so we have an idea if
Sounds good.
our investigators come by,
Yeah, and they know where to
never
go to,
know.
right? Got you.
I have no other questions. Motion to approve application number 24-01318, or excuse me, let me say the number. Motion to approve application number 24-01310.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve application number 24-01310. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The application is approved.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Calling agenda item number 8, request number 24-01211, HSI Honolulu Joint Venture Company.
And Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mr. I, Robert Uyoka on behalf of HMS Host, present to my right, Mr. Christopher Cado Hero. He's a senior director of operations. This is for a request for a temporary increase of premises for gate 21 at the Honolulu International Airport. It's adding about 500 square feet to the existing bar area to have tables and chairs. I asked Mr. Cado Hero and he said the gates are generally Southwest Airlines, but also used by Alaska Airlines. Trying to figure out where it is.
The seating area, that's all pretty much enclosed usually, right, by those
Yeah, we have
some
plans.
type of stanchions or something, right, usually in that area.
We have plans to put in hard gates in there. but just not now. We actually
Yeah.
did have a pending permanent extension as well. That's pending that we like to get this. We just wanted to get, be able to use that area. I wanted to thank, Investigator Sata for getting it on the agenda. We were on 2 weeks ago, but we didn't get the landlord consent from the state of Hawaii.
Oh,
So it's totally on us. So thank you so much for putting it back on the agenda, Daniel.
And the red line between the old bar and the new tables, there's nothing in between there. That's just the delineation of.
Currently, as we,
Yeah.
so currently there's a barrier in the
Ah.
fence. As we go through the renovation and add the space, we'll add new fencing around it.
Okay.
I think that's the fencing.
sounds good. I have no other questions. Motion to approve request number 24-01211.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve request number 24-01211. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The request is approved.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Calling agenda item number 9, request number 24-01294, Over Easy LLC.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Lobendon, owner and officer at Overeasy.
Kind of go through what you want to
Yeah.
do, just to make sure.
Sure, we are a breakfast brunch restaurant with current license. Our normal operations are all what's outlined in the red. And since December 1st, we signed on to take over the lease next door.
Mhm.
And was a juice operation, cold pressed juices and acai bowls. And so since December 1st, we've taken over that operation. And this is really the first step so that we're gonna go in for alteration of premises approval so that we can punch a little doorway that we can connect it to. So operations wise, we're able to move freely between the two. Right now, that blue area is it's kitchen prep, juice prep. So right now we're selling the juices out of the brunch side, but when they need juice, they have to run all the way around to get to it. So, yeah, that's kind of why we're going in for. We're not planning on selling any alcohol or, customers sitting, dining in that area.
So question I would have is, so the blue area that you're talking about that's unlicensed, you wanna put a doorway into. Does that have a separate entrance that people can entrance into that space?
Into the blue space?
Yes.
Yes, currently there is, on the right side is a doorway to the street side.
Okay.
That's where she used to sell her juices and her acai bowls out of.
Mhm.
And then in the back, there's another doorway by the bathrooms.
Okay.
Making sure I read the rule correctly, so.
Yes. Okay. See? Sorry. Second. So, okay, so. I think the rule itself, right? I think basically the rule is there, or because what we have, right, is we don't want people to be able to walk from an unlicensed place into a licensed place or vice versa, right?
You want a little background on the rule?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
please.
think,
It was originally because the rule is applicable to on-premise consumption licensees only. It was originally put in because there were certain types of dispensers that had adult entertainment in the licensed area. there was an unlicensed part that was adjoining the unlicensed where they could exceed the limits of that adult entertainment. And that's what it was initially meant to address 10, 15 years ago.
Got it. So no adult.
7
Kind of
a.m.
lap dancing.
7 a.m. They might be coming out. Okay, all right.
Okay,
Thank you for that
Yeah.
clarification.
is there? I know, okay, so I know that like on our side, right, we cannot have locked doors or locked things, right? You don't have a plan, right? To have people coming through either of those doors into your unlicensed space for juice, right? You're basically looking to use the doorway to get people to move that product to your people that are outside within your restaurant, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, there's actually not even gonna be any currently no alcohol in the space, even if we get the door, do the door anyway. It's all gonna be later on if that happens. Okay. All right, I have no other questions. Motion to approve request number 24-01294.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve request number 24-01294. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The request is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Calling agenda item number 10, request number 24-01317, Enigma LLC. Oh,
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chairs, and Commissioner Robin Milch on behalf of the applicant. And I'm here today to request reallocation of their first temporary license period to commence from January 20, 2024 to May 18, 2024. Because during that first period, they were not in operation. They never sold, they were not open. They never sold any liquor. And because the rules only allow for 2 temps, their current temporary will expire in January 2024, and the public hearing on their new application is not until the middle of March.
so you had a temporary license that was unused and then expired. You
Correct,
came for an update and that one is now in use but will not go far enough.
correct,
So we're trying to move the unused one, that's the first one, to be the first one that's.
to be now the second, correct.
So I think. So I do want to make a point, right? We have reviewed some of these things on a case by case basis.
Correct.
And, you know, we have had some discussion in regards to on a case by case basis, continuing to review them, but we also have had discussions that once a temp is closed, it's kind of closed, right? Because we don't have. To some degree, your client had the ability to tell you at that point,
I
move
know.
it, right?
I know, and
And so,
he told me I would have.
no, we totally
I
understand. We're just, I'm just giving you some background because we've
Right.
come across quite a few of these over the last recent few months, right?
Right,
So I do have 2 questions. So the first question is, I know on September 15th, we approved, right? The moving stuff, right? Let's see here. So September, right? May to September, then we moved right from September 20th to January 20th, right?
the temporary,
Right.
correct,
And so you said in your letter, you started serving or they started serving in October.
right, they
you
opened
have-
for October.
Do you have an exact date that they started serving in October?
That I do not have, but it was after the first temp had already had expired.
Okay.
So they filed their gross liquor sales report for the first period and it was 0.
Right.
I think where we're trying to get to is perhaps we're trying to provide consistency
Right,
when we do these waivers. And one way we could be consistent is to reallocate the days of the open second temp to start whenever you started serving on that. But that may or may not be enough days for you to.
yeah, correct, yeah, because I just got the notice, I forget, I think it's middle of March when the public hearing is set. So I mean, I understand because, it took almost a year to process the application. That's why we're kind of, behind now with respect to the temps running out. And unfortunately, the rules only allow for two, even though back then I hardly, if ever, applied for a second temp. Now it's much more common because of the delay, and I understand that, but now we're faced with this problem of, they have this temp and now they have this period where they cannot either serve or to apply for a special, but a special license for the same period as a temp is almost $11,000, which is not economically feasible for a lot of these small businesses. They just cannot afford that.
How do I understand how many unused days there were in the second temp? Or did a service start at the beginning of the second temporary?
So I don't know the exact amount of days because I did not discuss that with them. I know for sure during the first period,
Oh,
they never used it because of the delays in completing the renovations and equipment and stuff, so they never opened. I wish they told me,
Yeah.
then I would have
Right.
delayed, the start date of that particular temp, but,
you suspect though that the unused days for the second temp are not enough to get you to the
right, because that
period.
there's no way it's gonna be more than 45 days.
That's what it is from here.
So, I guess. So I'm going to entertain a motion to go into an executive session for the purpose of to consult the board attorney's questions. Attorney on questions and issues in a matter pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities.
I have a question.
Oh, wait.
Can she try to find out while we're talking about it?
So
But I think the licensing supervisor can look up.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Some of
reference,
this-
yeah.
So the other thing we would want is if you can try to get in contact with your client, if he knows when in
When to start.
October he actually opened and started serving alcohol,
Okay,
that would be helpful for
Okay.
us when we come back from
okay,
this thing, if it's possible.
okay.
Thank you. Oh, wait, we need a second
Second.
first.
I second, thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Any news or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. We're in executive session. Okay, we're back. A few items.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yes,
make a
I
motion.
would, yes. Chair and Commissioners, I would like to amend request number 24-01317, agenda item number 10. To instead reallocate the unused days in the current temp license period. And for September, there's 10 days, October 19 days, November 17 days, December 4 days, and January 3 days, for a total of 53 unused days in the current temp period.
Oh, hold on. So let's have a little discussion, right? So
Okay.
we deliberated a bit and we want to be consistent that when a temp closes, you have to get in before the temp closes.
Correct.
We tried to exercise as much flexibility as we could to accommodate your client, but that was a lot of time to
I know,
try to accommodate your client.
I
So,
understand.
we're getting a flood of these moving stuff around, and we realize that, and in fact, the next discussions that we're gonna have is about the process of getting a license, and we realize that there's delays, and that's why we're trying to be so accommodating, but
Yes.
obviously we have reservations. I will be voting with reservations, but
Right,
that's kind of how we are. Anyone else?
So I think on our end, we just are working at trying to get everyone on the same page and understanding how these things are.
Yeah.
And we do know there's other avenues that can be used if needed. As well as we work toward getting things better, that time gets better in regards to the licensing and getting licenses. So we're hoping we can work through all of those things.
yes, I understand.
So my motion is going to be to approve the amended request for number 24-01317 with the unused days of 53 days being moved.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the amended request number 24-01317. Seeing no nays or reservation, oh, I'm sorry, I vote with reservation, so. But I also vote aye, the request is approved.
Thank you. I appreciate that. They appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Calling request number 24-01297 from Hawaiian Moon Inc.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission, Greg Nishioka, authorized agent appearing on behalf of the requesting party, Hawaiian Moon Inc., DBA Cucina Moon. Basically, there's been a problem with the kitchen staff and the chef is taken ill. So basically, as indicated, the Mr. Takeshi Tsukii has taken over the kitchen, so I don't think his culinary skills are quite up to par as a chef, so they're kind of trying to scale back and request that they change the dates that they can serve alcohol to accommodate so when the chef can come back, accommodate his return and have more, the dates, the full amount of dates available.
And so none of the dates were used.
Negative.
Done.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No.
Motion to approve request number 24-01297.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve request number 24-01297. Any nays or reservations? I also vote aye. The motion request is approved. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Just a second. I've been up here a couple weeks now. And you have not looked at me once in all of those weeks.
Really?
And I just want to hopefully hope that we can change that in the future.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm trying to focus this way.
No, you-
And I know.
Yes, yes, you're very.
Commissioner
consistent with
Hollinger
that.
is, always asks me questions, so I apologize.
Thank you.
No slight intended, by the way. I'm just-
Okay, I'm just,
and it's coming this
hopefully we
way.
can change it.
Okay, calling request number request number is 24-01301 from Rosh and Sato. Wait, did I miss one?
No, that's right.
Okay,
Correct.
okay,
Yep. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission, Greg Nisha, authorization, appearing on behalf of requesting party Kotiki LLC. This was basically is a request for additional time to effect the license and pick up the license. The licensee is, having problems getting tax clearance. And we've been trying to assist him to the process, trying to get the tax clearance as well as getting professionals in to help him, tax professionals in. So that's the reason for the request. Hopefully he's almost at that point where he can pick it up. Okay.
So is this the first time we've had a request to extend it 6 months, or is this an additional request?
If my recollection serves me correct, Commissioner, I believe it might be the second time.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I don't recall, but I believe it's the second time.
Okay, so I guess my ultimate question is, I know we're working through this, but is there more time than 6 months that you need just to be safe? Only because it only brings you back here quicker if he's unable to. So I'm just asking, because I'll be honest and say, I'm not against granting longer than 6 months, but I don't want to do it if you or your client feel that it's unnecessary.
I appreciate the consideration, but part of the problem is this license was approved some time ago. But if the commission is willing to give him a year, and if we get if we can get the approval, the tax clearance within that 12-month period, then fine. I'd be willing to accept that. And I appreciate these consideration given to our client.
If I could just interrupt here, the thing is that the request is made for 6 months, so that's what we put on the agenda. So are you amending your request, just like Ms. Melcher did?
Yes, we would amend it if.
So it's up to you to whether to accept that amendment or not.
Yeah, if you want to amend it on the record, we'll be open to hearing that.
Amendment is requested, then we can extend it for a 12-month period from the initial request of 6 months.
One quick question, Ms. Harai, if during that 12 months they do come across where they can pick it up earlier, they have that
Oh,
available.
yeah,
correct?
it's anytime between now and 12 months.
Okay. So my motion is going to be, unless there's other questions. Motion to approve amended request number 24-01301 to add the total of 12 months additional for the licensee to pick up their license.
I second.
then moved and seconded to approve request number 24-01301. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The request is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the consideration given to them. Thank you.
Better call
Oh,
Agenda
I'm sorry. Calling agenda items number 13 through 17, adoptions of findings of facts and decisions and orders.
Okay, motion for agenda item number 13 for adoption of findings of facts, conclusions of law, decision and order.
I second.
Then moved and seconded to approve the adoptions of findings of fact and decisions and order, agenda items 13 through 17.
And,
Oh.
sorry, I only did 13 because there's that.
You did 13.
Oh, it's 13 for adoption of finding facts and conclusions of law, sorry.
Yeah.
It moved and seconded. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. Adoptions of findings of facts, conclusions of law, decisions and order is approved.
And then motion for agenda items 14 through 17 inclusively for adoption of decision and order.
I second.
Been moved and seconded for adoption of decisions and order, agenda items 14 through 17. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I also vote aye. The decisions and order are adopted. Okay. Other business, the Liquor Commission, agenda item number 18, executive session. The commission may go into executive session pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statutes, section 92-4 and subsection 92-5A4 to consult with the board's attorney on questions and issues on a matter pertaining to the board's powers, duty, privileges, immunities, and liabilities as it pertains to UIPA requests, and public records law. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for this purpose.
Second, motion. So moved, sorry.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Any nays or reservations? Seeing none, I vote aye. We are in executive session. committee and it's. Hello, all right, okay. We're back. We've completed agenda item number 18 in the executive session, calling agenda item number 19 for the commission formation of a permitted interaction group regarding continuing education and training for liquor investigators, licensing staff.
Yeah, so I wanted to put this item on the agenda as part of us having a discussion and creation of a permitted interaction group. In regards to, I think, as many people have seen, part of Wei Chun's report talked about us having better training, education, and better types of ways for our investigators as well as licensing to get some of that stuff and for us to work toward not being as much in that police or HPD type of education or style. And so what I wanted to do is talk with the group to find out about forming a permitted interaction group so that we can research, strategize, and find ways to get some of this training and education for our LC1s licensing people, because technically most of it, from what research I've been able to do so far, it is not local. It's either we bring people in, we talk with other agencies. There's a lot of people that will do some type of police training or HPD type training, but you don't have a ton of training for regulatory agencies. So the idea is for this group to figure out how we can move through this calendar year and on in getting education set up in some way, shape, or form. So whoever wants to, I mean, I'm willing to say that I'll sit on it as one of the members of the PIG, unless there's two other individuals who want to do it, because it is a two-person, two commissioner type of group.
And if I may add to that, the agenda item number 20, liquor operations and procedures review, is primarily about providing training to the commissioners themselves. And so if we could include that scope within the permitted interaction group.
I'm fine with any of that.
I'm happy to volunteer and partner with you. And if
Yep.
you guys want to interject, that's great, but I'm happy to partner.
Because if nobody
We're
said
good
anything,
hands.
it'd be commissioner.
You want in on the pig?
Yeah, I'm going for the pig.
Okay. So do we need to make a formal motion in regards to who's gonna sit on the pig? Okay,
So we're gonna second. Were you motioning on second?
Should I
or
motion?
we- Do you want a second, Kevin?
I mean, I can make a motion of who's
I'll
gonna be on it and
Okay.
someone can second, so.
It's on it.
My motion is that we will create a PIG or a permitted interaction group for the purposes of formulating a strategy and approach for obtaining continuing education training for liquor commission enforcement, as well as licensing investigators and licensing support staff, with myself, Commissioner, and Commissioner Martin serving on the PIG.
Did I miss, did you include the scope that Jeff wanted?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, in
And
addition.
commissioners.
In addition to adding the liquor commissioners, operations and procedure review of licensing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the formation of a permitted interaction group. As stated, seeing any nays or reservations, seeing none, I also vote aye. The PIG is created. All right. Calling agenda item number 20, administrator, and this is the liquor operations procedures review. I guess if we can get the. So the purpose of this is, I guess let's go to the back, next slide. Do you want to? You guys want to come forward? Either way. Yeah, Mr. Santos, please step forward. The purpose of this is that we have a new set of commissioners. We require training on the operations and procedures of the Liquor Commission. However, in keeping with the Sunshine Law, our council recommended that only 2 of us can participate at a time, which makes it a little difficult to do training not in a public session. And so in keeping with the sunshine laws, we're going to conduct this type of training. And it's going to be both training and a time for us to discuss how the commission is integrated into this process, any of the bottlenecks and issues that have been surfacing with the Hui Chen report, so that we can have a much more public discussion in terms of how the process works and how we can improve it. If we could go to the next slide. The processes and goals. So one of the things with the sunshine law is that it's difficult to create a syllabus of items to discuss without having a hearing on discussing what we're going to discuss. So that is what this first hearing is about, first agenda item is about, and that's to solicit topics from my fellow commissioners on topics of interest for us to cover within these sessions. It's also, as I said, a place as we discuss these processes to, clarify how we're going through, the approval of licenses and adjudications, and perhaps establish, as we we're just saying in the last application, what are the kind of consistent rules that we want to carry forward when we provide justifications for moving some of the temporary license days of those. What are we trying to accomplish, and how are we going to kind of be consistent about it? One of the things we wanted to be consistent about is if your first temporary license closes, then it's closed. You should have approached us before it closed in order to kind of reclaim those days. And we're doing these types of flexible stretching of our authority because we realize it's a difficult time right now within our application approval process. And so one of the other items was to perhaps create a social media channel so that the kind of nuggets of this information we can put somewhere for the public to find it. And then this is also a time for the public to, hear about some of the upcoming changes to the rules of the Liquor Commission. There are some procedures within the current rules, and I have those listed. And something that's never, I don't know, Commissioner Hollinger, have you ever had a declaratory? Okay. And so one of the things that I have heard, right, was we don't grant 4 a.m. licenses. And I think that that's not true, but it's not clear. And one of the things about being a business person is you want clarity so that you can plan your business. And coming to us with your individual considerations of what you want to do, at least you could get a sense for whether or not this is something that we can approve. And please, jump in at this time. I want this to be just an open discussion amongst us, but at least from my perspective, we are the regulators. We want to make sure that the liquor laws and controls around liquor are followed within the city. But on the other hand, we want to encourage the business community to, thrive and prosper as a licensed business. And so we're not here trying to find a no, but, we want to try to get to yes. As you can see, we've been striving a lot in order to try to accommodate the community. Anybody?
Well said.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, and I think that's, on the administration side, that's I think why they selected this group of new commissioners, because we have this perspective. The other is the public themselves can petition to change the rules. And so I don't think I've ever seen one of those, but those are two pieces that I would encourage the public to take advantage of. And then as we run through revisions of the rules, there'll obviously be public hearings on all of that. Okay, so now that was all to get to the proposed top level agenda for us to discuss, but maybe we want to discuss at future times. An overview of the Liquor Commission, our organization, how the statute and rules play together, how the fees, budgets, fines, all of those things work. This is for the future. It wasn't for you, Mr. Sato. Don't look so. Your item number 2, we just kind of jumped ahead. So I thought, licensing was really high on our list of stuff for us to learn. We do it, every single session. So that's why I asked you to come forward. And then we'll go into investigations, how those work, and adjudications. Next slide.
Here we are.
And here we are for today's agenda, licensing part 1. Mr. Sato.
Yeah. Supervising Investigator Daniel Sato.
Odds.
Does with regards to your proposed top level agenda, this is the part where, as the commission, you guys add, subtract, change things. What other things do you guys want to do?
Well, I didn't have a chance to talk to them because I can only talk to them now for the first time. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to swing it on you, but I had to swing it on you here for the first time, right?
Oh, are you asking what else we want
Yes.
included?
Yeah,
That's the purpose of having this on the agenda.
yes.
Is there anything else that you guys want to add to this?
Do we have to decide now, or can that be decided as things come up?
Can
and-
we amend it?
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Okay.
if you wanna have that discussion, you can now. Then if you want to say, maybe we can add this to the pig. Because that way you can talk about it. and not-
Yes, this is the time for us to have an open discussion like it's a normal meeting, but all of us
So I
chatting
don't-
about what we.
I guess one thing I would want to know, I don't know if it's covered under organization, workflow or product workflow in a sense of. And we're gonna hear about licensing, but how it runs from the front. To here, because obviously the channels and whether or not how quickly they work. Can affect certain things, right? And if there's ways of either. Streamlining it or providing ways of. IT support or something to help that process. Then I don't know if that falls under the organization portion, but that would be something I think we would want to have at least. An idea of how it is, because that's also part, I think, of Wei Chun's discussions, right? Is getting a better process and a better idea on how things run, right? Because. There's none of that there. Based off of what she's.
how the sausage is made.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about food, I guess so. If we want to talk about alcohol, how you brew it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so, I mean, I guess that's an idea. I mean, I don't know if that falls under there, but that was a thought process that I always
I'm
wanted
in
to
favor of
understand.
that. I just have a checklist.
Administrator
Alright.
Catilios, please.
Welcome.
Salvativos, administrators of the Honolulu Liquor Commission. I'm glad that you brought that up, but I think as Daniel goes through his presentation, you'll see the process in terms of intake, to investigation, to eventually the process that's needed for an application to come before. So that's gonna be part of what Daniel's gonna talk about. That said, I just want to make sure that, there are very discrete things within the whole process, but my understanding as well that it can be that this conversation could go on over several
Yes,
sessions.
it wasn't at that.
So just be aware that some of it's pretty dense and Daniel's done a good job in terms of trying to simplify it and make it understandable for everyone. But also but what he's doing basically will take you through the entire process itself.
I have nothing else to add, only to say that if there's other things that we come across that we'd be allowed to add to the agenda.
I'm all for it. How we do that within the sunshine rules constrictions, we'll have that discussion. All right. I think we're ready. Oh, are you gonna get a full screen?
You should go slideshow.
There we go.
Very slideshow.
Okay, Supervising Investigator Daniel Sato for the licensing section. So this is a licensing application overview. I'll be talking today pretty much only about the new application process. What it's gonna entail is a lot of details and a lot of reading, so I'm pretty much not gonna talk you to death with the information that's on the screen. I'm just gonna highlight certain areas that, as I go along to the slideshow. At any given time, please do interrupt me and ask questions. I pretty much posted general information with the hopes of this slideshow being posted on the website so it can be used by anybody who wants to get more information on the process, which is beneficial because our process is kind of long and lengthy, and it entails a whole lot of liquor laws and liquor rules. So hopefully this would help the applicants or small business people who don't have an authorized agent or an attorney. Okay, so basically, there's 17 different types of licenses, and they can range from manufacturer to a dispenser or a restaurant. Basically on this slide is just basically talking about the different classes of licenses and the state's statute of 28131, which kind of goes into detail as far as what each does. So with this breakdown, we do tend to see on each application, people, when they apply, they kind of get the class, kind, and category all mixed up. So this is an all-inclusive list for them to kind of read through and actually put it directly on the paper on the application packet itself. So that way there's no discrepancies and it's more easier to look at. So basically whenever you before you start your application, you're gonna have to have the legal structure of businesses or your business. And what I did was I posted the websites that they can go to as far as the information as they need it. And the information that's posted on this is going to be transferred onto the liquor license application itself. And basically they can just cut and paste once they figure out what they're gonna do. Just a little bit more information is the tax map key number, and then also the TTB side, which affects certain classes of licenses like manufacturer, wholesaler, brew pub, winery, and small craft.
The tax clearance was one of the items that came up today that it wasn't completed. Is that on the list, or you don't need it at this time?
Not at the preliminary stages of the application. It's just at the beginning stages. So
Okay.
what we generally need is the state GE tax number. Most people, they just began their business and they wouldn't necessarily have a tax clearance ready.
Right.
Okay, this is a new liquor license application packet. It can be found in our rules. The good thing about it is on our website, we have liquor laws and rules. It's a kind of lengthy process to read under that 3-8353.1. What I did was basically kind of shortened it, but remained the pertinent content to it. So I'm not gonna cover the whole thing, and they can review it or go straight to the rule. Just additional information that they need to. I'm gonna point out that the floor plan drawn to scale pretty much most of the time is a lot of people, they tend to not understand what 2-scale floor plan means. I kind of listed out the architectural scale size that we use usually, which is 1/8, 1/4 inch, 3/16 or 3/32 equals a foot. We do check it with the tax map, so those are the two things that kind of sticks out the most. And there's a tax map. So the tax map key to scale is 1 inch, either to 40, 50, or 60 scale. Sometimes we do get golf courses that are huge and the tax map is enormous. So we're looking as far as how to measure that on a tax map scale. But they can always refer to the real property tax assessment division within the city to get more information. A little bit more information regarding small businesses and who they mail out to. So condominium hotel licenses is a little bit tricky in a sense because they involve people's houses. On condo hotels, they have split between a hotel and a condominium complex. So it's a little bit more trickier in a sense because we don't want to encroach on somebody's private house. So there's a lot more details that goes into the application packet. And like the condominium property regime, who's the operator, so on and so forth. Also, the zoning clearance, there's multiple places where you can get zoning clearance depending on the location of the proposed premises, such as HCDA controls all of Kaka'ako and some parts of the upper side, Mauka and Makai. And also Aloha Tower has its own development, so they have their own zoning clearance, and also Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And finally, the city has their own. They can all look it up on the city website or off of the Real Property Assessment Division or off of the DPP site. Also, the liquor liability insurance is a requirement for most on-premise consumption premises. There's other liquor license applications that they can choose from, depending on the circumstance that they're going through. So if there's a current liquor license at the premises that's pretty much in good standing, they can also apply for a transfer liquor license, which is typically faster, based on the type of license it is. Like most restaurants, as you may know, that the public hearing is usually within a 2 weeks window, which is prelim and public. But if it was for a cabaret or a dispenser, it's gonna ride out the full 45-day window because there's the mail outs.
But like, we hear this all the time, right? Somebody applies, just now, right? They apply for a temp. No, but that's a temp. Yeah, but it's a temp with a transfer or something like that. And that's why we're getting these requests is that
So the temps that can be applied for, as long as there's a pre-existing premises at the location that they're applying for with the same class, kind, and category, they can apply for a standalone temp. Now, there's a little bit trickiness as far as the length or duration of when the last time that the premises had that license. What we're gonna run into problems with is sometimes when the file is destroyed or past a certain amount of time, the location and the tax map and also the floor plans are gone. So we might run into a little situation with that.
We had that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we need to report exactly what the premises was, and that can be a challenge. So anything outside the 15-year window where files get destroyed is where we're gonna have a little bit issues with the temporary, because we're gonna have to figure out what was there before. Because in essence, like if the premises does get bigger for some reason, when it was actually a small location, we might be ending up licensing a huge warehouse or a huge space that wasn't the way it was under the previous license. And that may impact the public in that way.
But if you're just buying a space that was already a restaurant, do you just then apply for the transfer and?
So as far as the transfer, if the license is still active, which is a good thing, you can apply for the temp and then the transfer, and then that process is typically easier. because we have all the information on file. What we do run into, however, is sometimes the licensee that has the license tends to modify the premises.
Yeah.
Which we run into a problem because we have to fix or make sure that the floor plan on file with the current licensee is also transferred to the transferee.
And somebody's gonna pay a fine between the two of them for adjusting the floor plan without permission.
That is correct. It tends to be the transferee that usually pays for it. Just because the fact is that the previous licensee already sold the business. So it's a tricky situation. Most of the time, we would like to have the current licensee, stand, face the music.
Yeah.
Regarding their violation, but not in all cases that it happens that way. The next one is the special liquor license for profit organizations, and the specials get used a lot. We tend to see a lot to bridge the gap as far as the opening date of, and then their new application in some instances where a temp that cannot be applied for. It's a good thing, I guess, but we tend to make sure that we have at least a 6-week window so we can prepare it properly to come before you and make a decision.
And so some people are using these huge, that's $90 a day, we just heard,
Correct.
kind of span the gap of what's occurring, between a temp expiring and your hearing.
Yeah, so it's actually a dual effect. I mean, now that it's become more common to use a special. Before, like a couple years ago, it was never used in that sense, but it has helped out businesses who want to operate immediately. And there's a short-term vetting process as far as that goes. We do run criminal history under a special for the for-profit side. So half of the work is pretty much done. Sometimes where the applicant during the new application process changes a lot of things, such as their corporate structure or their floor plans. They tend to miss their target opening date on their own, and we kind of get caught up in trying to help them out, fixing, making sure that everything's kosher. And the special licenses actually save them a lot of time. The next one is the catering liquor license application packet, and that's pretty much used by restaurants, hotels, and condominium hotels to provide catering off premises. That, as you can tell, it's used a lot at the airport, when they have that kiosk for the inner island terminal, and I think they're gonna continue to use that until they decide on a new application. And last one is the special nonprofit liquor license. Those come before you. Sometimes they're a really big event. And we try to, make the nonprofits aware of, giving us the information that we need so we can relay it to you so you can make an informed decision. Because sometimes it's like a block party and it's noisy.
So, some of these, if I'm correct, some of these also though can be approved administratively, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So the only one that can be approved administratively is the catering that's under 3 days.
Okay.
And it depends on each circumstances. If the catering ends up into, like, let's just say it ends up on the street, we would want you to make that decision because that way it gives the public awareness of what's gonna go on with the actual event. And
If I could just end it, also, because only the commission can impose conditions and restrictions on a license. That's another legitimate reason to bring something before you, because we administratively can't say, oh, you have to shut down your music at 9 o'clock. So it'd have to come from this body. Sorry.
Because I noticed, two folks that always come in between us, Cools in Catering by Sinublan always comes in as a special license, but they always go to the same place and they have their events there. And then Sodexo, which does the shell, always comes in as a catering license. And
Yeah, so with Cruise and Catering, I believe that they're unable to get a lease. So it's kind of tricky in that sense, and they keep on filing the specials, and we try to work with them. We understand their situation.
yeah, we see them all the time, right? Every single birthday or.
Yeah, and so far, I mean, it's been running well as is, so. As far as the shell is concerned, like, Waikiki Shell has a special tricky part of the zoning process where the music needs to desist after 10 p.m. Sometimes it may run a little bit over, but, for the most part, you're talking about great significant impact to the community. And it involves, like thousands of people sometimes.
And so the 10 p.m. restriction is a shell restriction and not one that we impose.
I believe it's the ordinance for the zoning.
I think Waikiki has, I think certain parts of Waikiki, the shell, I think the bandstand. I don't know if the zoo, but I know at one point there was some, in those areas, you could not have a concert or something that would hit certain noise levels after 10 p.m. Just because of the residential area.
And it's kind of tricky. It's a shell, so it reverberates the.
Yeah.
Purposefully.
Yeah.
And then like the Waikiki Aquarium that always comes here, they.
Yeah, for events,
Yeah, and I believe they do multiple, so that's.
but it's
Allow, yeah.
come for several that are gonna have.
Cause I remember before, right, we were having guys from the Japanese Cultural Center for a while, right, coming a lot for specials, right? Because they wanted to get the lease to be the permanent caterer in there, right?
Yeah.
And then they finally got the lease, and then now they went for a permanent license in there, so now they don't come. So that's. Yeah, okay.
That's the key.
Yeah, some of the liquor license application restrictions, pretty much gonna talk about the temporary liquor license. So the temporary liquor license, the main. Part that where we run into some significant issues sometimes is the applicant for the temporary. Has to be the same class, kind of category currently or previously in effect for the premises. From my understanding of why the temporary license was formed is because they kind of wanted to bridge the gap during the transfer process. And the temporary license is actually a great tool to kind of help them out in that sense, but in a sense where it doesn't create the impact to the public when you start changing the category, because sometimes if it's a standard category, there's no music or dancing. If it gets changed somehow and the public is not aware, then we run into issues like noise complaints, which it tends to be habitual sometimes. So that's the main part of the temporary liquor license restriction. The special for-profit and nonprofit applications, so fundraising by nonprofit events are not to exceed 12 days per calendar quarter or not to exceed 3 days per application for profit. You do have the authority to waive it, and it can be waived, I believe, administratively.
The three, to accept the larger span.
Yeah.
Yeah, you delegated authority. We used to have to schedule 2 hearings, one to get permission to file a long-term special license application, and then it would come back again to take action on it. So you delegated authority to administration to okay the acceptance and processing, but it still comes before you for hearing.
Just to brush up on the temporary license application. There's that 1 year restriction from whenever the initial issuance or transfer to a new applicant is in effect, and that's under 28141. The transfer license got to be the same class, kind of category, unless otherwise specified, then they can apply for a new at the same time. So it's usually if they want to change the category or change the class, they can apply and operate under the temp as the temp is, and then apply for the new, and we'll just go ahead and process the new application. And there's other little nuances like inspections and report by investigators, or if there's a violation pending for a transfer, then you do have the authority to kind of waive that part, but the transferee will probably get the violation. this is our workflow.
Alright.
So red is bad. So it starts off at a application received by the commission, which our front counter staff and our licensing support section is. What we did was we kind of made it clear as far as what the process is we do intend to roll out a new process and sharing to the public, a similar version, or if not the same version. We do encounter a lot of deficient applications. I would say 1 out of every 3 is deficient in some way, shape, or form. It's because I believe that the checklist doesn't kind of fully explain exactly what we need. Our rules kind of do, but our rules is like a huge paragraph. Right. Yeah. So just to summarize it, it's gonna go from the license support section to our administrative services officer, to myself as the supervising investigator for licensing, and up to the administrator. At any given point in time, if we do find deficiencies, we will address it with the applicant directly, and it does not get processed until everything is complete. So that way, the time gap when they do drop it off, because sometimes they'll just drop it off and not give us everything and thinking that it's processed. So this process will be kind of like showing them that here's what happens when you don't turn everything in. And we're willing to work with you, and we're actually making a letter to show exactly where it's wrong.
If you had a perfect application and you dropped it off today, how long would it take to get through the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps?
Depending on the licensing support, I would say average probably like 3 days.
Oh, wow, okay.
This process, we did have discussions with the administration where we're trying to shoot for a ideal situation of 10 business days. Sometimes there's agreements that are kind of convoluted or not clear that we need to address. And you know, sometimes it requires further asking of the agent to clarify. But once it's approved by the administrator, down at the bottom, the administrator or designee approves the filing of the application, which officially is the application being processed, and that's when the clock starts for us. Then it gets routed back to myself, and I make the assignment to the investigator for investigation.
So when I look at our data dashboard, the clock starts on the pending applications at that point.
So the data dashboard actually started whenever it came over the counter. Most of the items that you see on the data dashboard are when it was actually input into the computer system, which may not reflect when it got cleared through all the deficiencies. We do have like some applications that came in like in May, and then it got to my desk in November. So it may be a little off. There's not a lot of those, thank goodness. We try to work with the applicants always and try to bridge that gap, and hopefully this workflow and the details on this helps them out.
So a question, so once it gets passed by the licensing support section, it gets to the administrative service officer, the licensing administrator, is there specific areas that each specific person is looking for to confirm whether or not the application is complete?
Yeah, so by the time it hits my desk, I'm doing the full in-depth detailed review. So that way it may cover what they initially seen, and we have a checklist for that. And I can verify whether or not it is correct or it isn't, because sometimes it gets checked off, but it's actually okay. So that way there's a certain level of consistency as far as how you turn in your applications. It typically is gonna go all the way up to me first, and then I'll do a full in-depth review. So that way we're not going back and forth.
Thank you.
So once I assign the case to an investigator, the assigned investigator makes a cursory review of the application packet and makes a notification to the applicant. Identifying themselves as the assigned investigator. So we typically are gonna try to shoot for 10 business days or so. So that they know who to contact directly. We don't typically. We run into problems when sometimes they don't know who the assigned investigator is and they call everybody else. And sometimes they have information and just email people the information that we're actually waiting for. So that way, once the assigned investigator makes contact, they'll give them their name, phone number, email, so on. And that's part of the other next assignment is notifying the applicant of the start of the investigation. So just a little bit details, they do conduct the investigation, the prelim inspections, and they'll speak with the applicant themselves or the agent to find out more details regarding their application. And there's background checks and then of course the report writing. Once everything is approved, goes up through me to the administrator for approval.
Is it okay?
Okay.
6:15.
All right. Yeah. Oh, hold it. How does that work
Because
when somebody has to leave?
Yeah, I didn't know we're gonna go to probably 6:45 or something.
It's fine.
Yeah, we
No,
just,
like
we
15
just
minutes.
indicate what time you left.
Okay.
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 All right.
Yeah, try to make it fast. Okay, so once the report is approved, we take care of the notice of hearing. We set the prelim date. We'll work with the applicant. Sometimes they're out of business or I mean, not out of business, but out of state. And we'll try to work with them. It goes all the way to the hearings reporter and of course the prelim hearing date, at which is before you with the application and the report. At that point, you can either grant or deny to the public hearing. And the next one is the public hearing date. The hearings reporters, they run the ad in the Star Advertiser as far as the notification. The applicant must meet all the requirements of mail outs at least 45 days prior to the public hearing date. Just a little bit details where they have to turn in the affidavit of mailing, submit the mailing list and the neighborhood board. On our back end, we're preparing the application record. We're checking for protests. We will generate a supplemental report if the protest is significant. So typically, if you have like a small community and there's like several, we're gonna generate a supplemental.
Have we, I'm trying to think of one that happened. There was the place in Hawaii Kai where there were a few people that were,
So
but that's not. a lot.
yeah, so that's the tricky part about public hearings. It'll be kind of difficult for us to do it on the fly. Sometimes they do have the right, the public has a right to come in and protest. But if there's a significant amount of people, kind of like the Waikiki one,
Oh, yeah.
we're writing down everybody's names. It's good to have them identify where they're residing at.
The 500 feet and all.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because there is a statutory requirement if it hits that 40%, if there's a park or a school.
Yeah.
Or the 50%, that's an automatic denial. Usually for Waikiki, it's a very high number to hit, but it's good to find out where they live within the 500-foot radius. And it also gives you guys the ability to kind of figure out if there should be conditions, should it need to get to that. Oh. So once everything is approved for the application record, it goes back up and everybody is standing by for the public hearing.
At the neighborhood boards, is there any ever action taken there?
There is. So sometimes they put it on the agenda and they have discussions. We've had, I would say, several times where the neighborhood board has came down before you guys. I think the last one that we had was the Wahiawa one, where she spoke out and they approved the, the consent of the license. Typically the 45-day window is to allow the public to have their input and testimony since that's their neighborhood. And it's gonna impact them in some certain way. So it's good to have that. So the special for-profit is similar in that sense, where they have to make the notification, but quite often it's a quicker turnaround and it may not be on their agenda for discussion, so it's kind of tricky. Going back to the new application process, once it goes to public hearing, and if there's protests, that's significant. You have the action, you have the right to take the action of continuing the hearing if there's a certain amount, or granting or denying. And the red is the denial. There's some certain instances where if it hits that 40 or 50%, it's a denial. And once the application and license is granted, our hearings reporters, they generate a list of things to do for the applicant to fulfill the requirements, such as give us the tax clearance and also complete their final inspection and or provide us the insurance most times. And our investigators waiting for the applicant to call us for the final inspection. Sometimes it does take longer because I think the other one was it gets hanged up at DPP regarding their approvals. So there's a lot of 6-month reviews that need to happen, but there's a lot of licenses pending. And once they fulfill every requirement on that checklist, then the license is issued. This overview is conducted every day, every Thursday, usually at 4
Oh, wait,
p.m.
can we go back on the piece so which of these is the one that's people are coming in and they're saying, this is taking me the longest. I've been waiting 3 months, 6 months, whatever.
The stamp.
Is it just the
No.
final? Yeah.
I can talk, well, on the workflow, I actually have the details as where sometimes it gets hanged up.
Oh, yeah.
That's in the
forgot about that.
bottom.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another part.
And just a little background.
Mhm.
What are some of the issues during the application process? Okay, so typically on the front end, and I'm going to try to be brief about this. Most of the times it's the incorrect information on the application itself, and we do encounter some people using white out on the notarized document or writing all over it, where we get confused as to what happened. Sometimes the information gets skewed and it looks like it's just really messy. So we tend to have the applicant put the correct information on the notarized document and not alter it, because it's a notarized document. The other hangups are sometimes when they don't know what kind of corporate structure they have. Sometimes they tell us it's a member managed when it's a manager managed LLC. And they don't provide all the articles or the operating agreement. And sometimes it does conflict what they're actually putting down on the other side. So those are the common ones. Financial statements, sometimes we get a balance sheet that is all over the place and it's not balanced at all.
Bankers don't like that.
We do verify pretty much the information provided, because one part of the rule is to make sure that they can operate decently for 6 months. And that's by rule. So we do look at their balance sheet and how much they're gonna have to use to their expenses to get them started. So sometimes it's all over the place. And sometimes they give us a bank statement with zero. The next one is personal history. Sometimes people put the wrong information on their personal history. And they mark all over it. And the next common one is the floor plan, not to scale. And it doesn't match the tax map floor plan and size. The mail out list, which is a fun one. We do check, for the most part, the we match the list with what's currently on city records. Sometimes it does match, sometimes it doesn't match, and from my understanding is there's a whole version to it, from the Bureau of Conveyance to the Real Property Assessment Division and even Dole tax. So we're still trying to kind of figure out what's the perfect solution for this. And how to make sure it's accurate. Next is the zoning clearance. Sometimes they write all over the zoning clearance. And on the form it says do not write. Just do a new one. The next one is the lease or landlord consent. Sometimes we find a lease that's not the fee owner, and we're not sure if it's permitted. Sometimes you'll run into a lease issue and landlord tenant issue where the landlord doesn't want it, and then the lessee says it's okay, and we go in this back and forth loop. So we want to be sure that the fee owner of record is consenting to the application.
Chair, 6:10.
Okay. Excuse me, so, right.
Good job on this.
And next is the challenges that we encounter in a new application. Upon reviewing the application or evaluations, we tend to get caught up in when they make changes all of a sudden. And that kind of throws us off in a sense where sometimes we finalize the whole report. And then we look at DCCA records and we find new people and we have no idea who they are. And then we have to go back to the applicant and ask for them to identify these people and give us the personal history affidavit. So that sometimes takes a while. The next one is sometimes they say that they're gonna be doing the business a certain way, but sometimes it conflicts with what the documentation actually says. Now,
Is that a restaurant and then they're not serving food, or?
yeah, so some instances where they have like a little kiosk and they're a restaurant, but it looks like a dispenser and they're unsure how they're gonna get the food. And then they'll think of ways to get the food. And it gets messy in that sense because all we're looking at is what the statutory provision is for the restaurant, which is defined in HRS. And once they start saying they're gonna use somebody else's kitchen that's not even on the premises, we run into that, gray area. Sometimes we do run into the background check issue, which is, we have to find out exactly if it's a felony conviction. Some certain jurisdictions have different levels of misdemeanors and felonies. Some which may be expunged by their own, wherever they got arrested from. So that takes time to go through the courts or the actual jurisdiction who arrested the person. We kind of bounce back and forth with that one.
So I have a quick question. So the first check mark, you have the evaluating the new application or packet for accuracy, changes in business structure. So we're talking about like names of who's on their managers list, corporate list, that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So during the process, when they first turn in the application, right, and it's going through the process, it's past our workflow to where it's getting to that final stages and all that other stuff. How do they know, or is there a form that they're to fill out at that point when there is a change?
There is, typically they can do it through a certain form that we have on our website. The reasons why we catch it in that late stage is we're checking again before we finalize. Because we want to be sure that whatever we give to you before you make a decision is correct. Sometimes they change it on us on the fly. Typically that does throw us into a bind because we have to go and make sure that they file the proper personal history affidavits and their corporate documents change because it changes their structure in that sense. Majority of the time it's corporate people who are on the mainland and they operate at a different time. Sometimes they have to go through their own legal team that may not necessarily be the authorized agent here. So it's a back and forth thing.
Cause that's too late where we get that situation where you get a license and then they get an adjudication later, right? For not having the correct number of people or correct listed people on their corporate list, right?
So I think one of the major problems that we ran into was during the renewal, since the application now has to be notarized. A lot of people were like, oh, our list is wrong. It's notarized now, so we gotta make sure it's accurate. Which kind of led to us having an influx of officer and director changes, which we have that huge extensive backlog with. Is where they get caught up. But we try to tell them, as long as you file the documentation, that's the main thing. A lot of times they do corporate changes on the fly, and some big corporations, it's beyond their control. The other part is the field investigations where they have to go out to the field and, verify the churches, schools, and public playgrounds, residential areas. And when they do the noise impact survey, once the investigator kind of knows that general neighborhood, and this is where they have the experience from enforcement as far as the noise complaints and how noise can travel. It's kind of important to have that. It does require us to do verifying and researching on previous or active cases. Sometimes we can't talk about the active part, but we do know that there's noise complaints, and we'll kind of stipulate that in the part of the report. And of course, we verify the tax map and its accuracy in the floor plan.
Is that where you say that the noise, like, not noise abatement is for, but the,
Yeah, so the possible adverse effects it may have after the licensing of the, if approved, that's where you find the comments as, this proposed premises is right next to a place that had previous complaints, or X amount of things. The application that's before you has the same type of category, et cetera, et cetera. So we try to get as much details in as possible so that you're aware that it may turn into a potential problem, so, or you can impose conditions or restrictions. Sometimes it comes up before, by protesters like last week.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is like the examination equipment and the premises. Sometimes we walk into a premises and the floor plan doesn't match, or they have extra rooms that they didn't report on, or areas that is connected therewith and it's unlicensed. So we try to address it with the applicant as fast as we can. As far as the analysis of proposed operations, sometimes there are conflicts with the Department of Health, DPP, HFD, state or federal. Those are typically the ones we have to take the time to assess the most, because it's either a safety or a zoning violation or issue that we're trying to address with. And it takes time because we do work directly with the agency, and sometimes it's not easy. Next is the verification analysis of the statutory requirements. If they met all of the requirements. And the other one is the 28145, which is the felony and anybody who had their liquor license revoked for the 2-year window. The other fun part is that takes time is the protest tabulations and the verification of the mailouts. As you may know, with Waikiki, there may be 3,000 people that we're verifying, or some dense parts of the island where is a significant amount of people. We would have to do the owners and lessees in addition to the registered voters, and we would have to go down to the city clerk and pull a brand new batch list and make sure that they're registered for that location within the 500. And so the time necessary for the application process, it varies. Not all applications are the same. And not all instances are the same. So we try to work with them as much as possible to, make them aware of that fact. And this is the information if they need a status check as far as an application. They can call me directly or email me directly, or we have our licensing support staff who they can talk to. If they do encounter issues with the database, they can call the help desk or email. If they need to request for public information, our records management analysts can also provide them with like current floor plans if they're doing a transfer, things like that.
A person D Sato at honolulu.gov is now in the public record.
It's also
I'm just kidding.
already posted on the website. Well, when I respond to emails, I like emails because I'll put the statutory reference or the rule reference, so they have a copy of exactly what we need, which is good. And thank you.
This is
Thank
excellent.
you.
So
Thank you.
helpful. So I go back to if I had my perfect application that I sent in, how long will I be? If I'm 3 days to get to you at the start of the year?
So that varies.
No, I'm saying if it is perfect.
Perfect.
I'm perfect.
I'm trying to help.
No, I'm serious in the sense of what are the barriers to moving my perfect application through the system?
Can I
Oh, please.
piggyback off of
Yeah.
Jeff? It's same question.
Okay.
Okay. So we talked about, your different areas that you have problems with or areas, right? He's saying a perfect application, right? So all of those things being 100% correct, right? Like mail out correct, voter registration correct, floor plan correct, everything correct for a new license, not transfer, none of that, just brand new business. From once it gets to you, right, after it's went through all the processing. Best scenario of if everything is correct, how long it might take, because he said typically it all varies.
To the public hearing?
Yes,
Okay. Currently, I have some stats if you will.
And you don't have to do it now, but the reason for asking this, right, is that there's these discrete steps that when you look at a pipeline, where do we need to add resources so that that's slowest part moves, and there's always going to be a slowest part.
Well, I can provide you some stats right now, as far as what in the past 3 years on how many applications or investigations that we conducted. And that number is 2,600 investigations from 2020 till 2023 December.
Yeah.
So typically, you're talking about 651 per investigator for those 3 years. We did run into certain problems of, sick leave and of course, military obligations. So we still do have a significant backlog. 2021, we had 587 investigations alone with four staff members. 2022 is 811. 23, 837. Typically, you're not gonna get to address all those applications because sometimes it runs into hangups in different areas. And sometimes, like the ones before you, that they have their own hangups where the permitting process didn't go through. But I think currently right now we're looking at about 170 days.
And where's the bulk of the 170 days stuck in the process? We're like, which is the slowest step?
It's gonna get caught up in the investigations part, but there's other nuances like for us, like this past year, we had 220-ish rush cases. And those are the specials and caterings that we've been addressing. I've been typically handling those myself. So the investigators can handle the bulk of the new and transfers that people are waiting on. Of course, there's gonna be parts where it doesn't get addressed, such as like the officer director changes. Because we're focused on pushing out the new and transfers. So we're trying to work with the licensees who already have a license. But we're also working with the applicants, the more part to become the licensees. Cause they have been waiting quite a long time. Unfortunately, we do have that backlog. But we're trying our best to handle it.
And I wanna state, for me, I'm not asking the question to try to put anyone under a hot seat of anything. But when I look at it, we have the IT permitted interaction group here and the education and training permitted interaction group here as the three of us. And we're trying to figure with all of this where we can help figure out ways to help the licensing, the investigation, as well as enforcement in any of these cases. So we're trying to figure out what areas we can help to make that 170-day issue or where their hangup is easier. That's why, for me, I'm asking that question, trying to figure out those areas, right? Like part of me hearing what you said in regards to investigation, some guys and your investigators may have to go out to map or take distances to see how far something is. Whether we can work together to figure out setting someone's job to do that so many days out of the week or out of the year, so that when you get to an area, you have something automatically set there to use. Versus that your investigator needing to go do that, or he can be focusing on the other parts of that application. That's the only thing I'm looking at too.
So typically when an application is seated at an investigator's desk, not too many times you're gonna have another investigator jump in because that investigator who's assigned to the case is gonna be putting the pen to the paper, so to speak, and they're gonna be responsible for the content.
Mhm.
A lot of times is once an investigator hits a roadblock, they're gonna meet with the applicant, address the issue, and await for the applicant to address the issue. Then they're gonna automatically move on to the next one. Unfortunately, a lot of times it takes a while for them to respond back.
Mhm.
We have a transfer that I can think off the top of my head that it's like over 500 days. And we've been waiting for the attorney to respond back to us. We gave them a couple reminders to submit the information, but
We
it's
don't
so
have a way to just,
Your vote.
yeah, boot them out of the. They shouldn't count in our statistics after a year. They're
Yeah.
just abandoned.
it's tricky in that case, because that one's a transfer of license, but I've been trying to work with administration as far as what certain criteria where we can withdraw it ourselves.
Yeah.
And say, hey, go ahead and reapply. We're willing to work with you, but we've been giving you all these chances and it's slowing us down. Cause we do have to revisit that application every so often to report on it. Because we're keeping track of this information on how long it takes.
Right.
We should be able to set an expiration date though, right? I'm just.
Oh, I don't know either. That's what this is for us to ask these questions so that.
What would you be comfortable suggesting if you had an opinion on this? What that look like?
So there's certain parts where it gets tricky because if we tell them we're gonna withdraw your application, they may just submit whatever. And we might not be wanting that whatever. It's just to, appease the investigator of what he's asking for. It may be totally incorrect. It may be, just quickly throw in whatever. We do run into problems of that information coming in. So like one of the floor plans, it took like 5-6 months alone. It's just back and forth. We try to tell them, get it right the first time. We don't want you to rush, but we do have certain criteria and deadlines that they should meet. But it's kind of a tricky situation.
We invoke fines if they're wasting the department's time?
Not without rulemaking.
So it's, yeah, we gotta start.
Establishing like a shelf life for thing is a procedure because they have the ability to reapply, does not require rulemaking. We're trying to avoid that until we actually do rulemaking. Without doing underground rulemaking.
So we're gonna be revising our rules, so.
That's right.
And also too, with the whole process, I'm looking to streamline certain areas where we can actually just verify and just do a checkbox, but those are like for the request side. Like the transient vessels is a quick turnaround, like the minor request to work in the establishment is a quick turnaround. That kind of requests.
Am I hearing that it's a case by case basis on everything that you're hitting a bottleneck with?
Yeah,
Or-
so
okay.
we have a significant bottleneck with the officer director changes because the renewals and the notarization. Was a good thing in a sense, but it creates a backlog for everything else, unfortunately. And our primary focus is to get the businesses up and running or transfer to the transferee, because the requests, they're already in business. It's just that the reporting was, late. So the primary focus is usually on the new transfers, unfortunately.
Well, that gives us an idea of areas to figure out what we can, work on certain things, right?
Yeah, and I want to thank you for putting this presentation together. It was very useful for us, and
Definitely.
I'm sure we can replay it for any new commissioner that comes on to get a better handle on the situation. And I look forward to follow-ups, and we'll maybe send some questions in the to be determined agenda. Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
All right. Let's see, so now we're on agenda item 1, the administrator.
You guys have to tag team, like, hit the.
South TLS Administrator, Honolulu Liquor Commission. I'm reminded of the old adage that you don't follow Daniel's sign on a stage. For this week, there's really nothing substantive to report. And I'm sorry there isn't, but sometimes this is the way of the cycle. And yeah, and hopefully there's something to more significant to report on next time.
Okay, any other questions? Right, with that
Wait.
we're adjourned.
wait a second.
Hey, you that question.
That means I forgot to do something.
To remind the commission that for every agenda item that we have to ask if there's any public testimony.
Thank you.
And but just for the record, there is nobody from the public presently in the commission room. And there has been no signups for any testimony for any of for agenda items number 21, 20. 19. And 18. That's correct. That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Just sunshine law requires that the public be asked if there's any testimony on any of the agenda items.
Got it. Thank you. Right.
I have a question on that. So if nobody's in the room, do we just formally say that, or do we have to
Yes.
have an audience to say it? Just say it? Okay.
You can say no, but sometimes you don't know if someone has signed up.
Okay.
Or, it's best just to ask.
Sure.
Is there
Just-
anybody in the public that wants to testify? And especially if we have online.
Yeah,
but we're
okay.
not.
Okay, so just build that in. Okay.
Yeah, and it's generally good to ask for these matters at the end. You can ask in the beginning if there's anybody who wants to testify at any of the following agenda items. You don't have to do it at every single.
Okay.
Every single. event.
Thanks.
Especially since no member of the public was here, we could have asked the empty room. Got it. All right. Anything else? Okay, we're adjourned.